You're about to watch what we call an extended clip of the Young Turks, and the reality is it's somewhere in the middle. It's a little longer than our YouTube clips, but it's actually shorter than the whole 2-hour show, which you can get if you're a member. You can get it ad-free, and make sure you catch every news story we do that day. You're gonna love it as a full show. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur and Kasparian with you guys, and I've got exciting news for you guys. T-minus 3 months until the Republican Party is, not that it's over, but that the end has begun. Okay, so I'm going to come at you with an enormous amount of facts on this program regarding that storyline. And so that is incredibly good news. And Donald Trump, more incredibly good news. These are somewhat related, but not completely related. Donald Trump is reeling, Anna.
Oh, I know, I like it.
Oh my God, he's on the ropes, and don't ask him if he's all right. He's hurt, dog.
Oh, he don't like that.
No, he don't. And it turns out the voters don't like that. Turns out he's losing everybody under the sun. Man, there's a lot of good news today. Okay, so just keeping it real on that. And as you all know, if you want to catch any part of this show anytime you want, commercial free, tyt.com/join to become a member. Home of progressives, and if you're a progressive today, I'm telling you, you're about to get 2 hours of excellent news.
Yes, yes. Later in the show, my personal favorite, a story about how Republicans are quickly abandoning the tax cut messaging in their campaigning. It's so good.
Don't ask them if they're all right. They're hurt, dog. Okay, and we will talk throughout the show about America. It's on the soundboard. Okay, so watch out. The number of times I refer to that will be astronomical. I'm just giving you a warning ahead of time. All right, Casper, take it away.
All right. CNN has obtained some of the audio that Michael Cohen had recorded during his discussions with Donald Trump. Now, the recent story has everything to do with a Playboy model, former Playboy model that Donald Trump allegedly had an affair with. And
that allegation is true.
That's true, yes. He had an affair with her. And the tape that we will have you listen to in just a minute will prove just that. But this particular audio has to do with Karen McDougal, again, former Playboy model who had an affair with Donald Trump. And of course, Donald Trump had denied any involvement with her, denied any efforts to offer her money, to hush her up. So we're gonna give you the details, give you some context before we toss to that audio. Just before Election Day, the Wall Street Journal had actually broken a story uncovering a secret deal with the National Enquirer to buy the silence of a former Playboy model, that's Karen McDougal, who said she had an affair with Donald Trump, and his campaign issued a denial of that. In fact, Hope Hicks specifically said, "We have no knowledge of any of this. The claim of an affair was totally untrue." Now, fast forward to today, and we have audio. The audio recording of Trump and Cohen relates to whether Trump should buy the rights of the story from American Media, that is the parent company of National Enquirer, which paid McDougal $150,000 in August in 2016 for her story about an alleged 10-month affair with Trump. The story was never published by AMI. Now, that is a strategy known as catch and kill. They are supporters of Donald Trump, which is why they didn't publish that story. And again, Trump claimed that he had absolutely no knowledge of any of this. Well, here's the audio that CNN obtained, and it seems as though in his conversations with Michael Cohen right before the election, he knew exactly what was going on.
I need to open up a company for the transfer of all of that info regarding our friend David. So that I'm going to do that right away. I've actually come up and I've spoken to Alan Weisselberg about how to set the whole thing up with.
So what are we going to pay?
Funding. Yes, and it's all the stuff, because you never know where that company, you never know where he's going to be. Correct. So I'm all over that, and I spoke to Alan about it when it comes time for the financing, which will be.
Listen, what financing?
We'll have to pay you. So
I'll pay for cash.
No. I got no.
Okay, so there's a lot that comes out of that tape. Number one is what Anna was referring to. We're done with alleged affair. Clearly he had the affair, clearly he paid her off. It's right there in the tapes, there's no question about it. Okay, so we're done with that portion of the story. By the way, evangelical voters that voted for him, I hope you're proud. That is yet another affair that is now confirmed that he had. By the way, his wife had just given birth, and that's when he was having that affair back in the day. And he is such a slime ball that he's paying people off not to talk about his extramarital affairs, but I hope you're proud. I know you think God works in mysterious ways and has picked what George Will said, basically slime to represent you guys. Hey, you said you were worried about Bill Clinton and morality in the Oval Office. Okay, I assume that you're apologizing right now to every progressive you ever met. I'm so sorry, I was just kidding. I don't care about morality in the Oval Office at all. Morality in the president, I kind of hate it. I love immorality. Just admit it if you're an evangelical voter and move on with your life, okay? You never cared about morality, it was always a lie. Okay, now, on to the parts that might or might not be illegal. So as you see there, they're talking about payments. First, before we get to the cash or no cash, which gets to the potential maybe illegality. I love that Cohen's like, so American media, the owners of National Enquirer, paid $150,000 to catch and kill the story, as Anna pointed out. And Cohen's like, now we got to pay him back. That's kind of how it works. And Trump's like, what financing?
Yeah.
Well, you've
Trump,
done this before, but every time you bring up something that he has to pay, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, pay, I don't know what we're talking about. And then Cohen's like, we asked him to basically, he's implying we asked him to kill the story, you got to now pay him. And he's like, fine. And then we get into the question of whether it's cash or not cash.
Right, exactly. I mean, Trump is notorious, and this is based on what people close to Trump have said about him. He's notorious for not wanting to pay for anything, even when the payment would actually secure his presidency or his election from a scandal that could really hurt him. He doesn't care. So here, Michael Cohen, yes, you're right, is encouraging him. Hey, we gotta pay AMI back, and then let's talk a little bit about the cash component of it, because there seems to be some disagreement. So Trump's camp is saying that no, Trump did not suggest financing this in cash. Michael Cohen's camp is saying that is not true. Trump wanted to finance this in cash, but Michael Cohen, as you can clearly hear in that audio, indicated that he wanted to create an organization, a company to kind of funnel this money through to kind of hide the payment, right? Now, that's relevant for a number of different reasons, and we'll get to that in just a second. But first, here is Rudy Giuliani responding to the audio and saying that Trump, no, he said nothing about paying in cash.
I agree with you, the tape is a little bit hard to hear, but I assure you that we listened to it numerous times. And the transcript makes it quite clear at the end that President Trump says, quote, don't pay with cash. Cohen then interrupts and says, no, I got it. And then you hear distinctly, if you're careful and you slow it down, check. And then Cohen follows with no, and then quickly cuts off the tape, which indicates exactly what President Dershowitz was saying, that Cohen doesn't want the rest recorded because it was too exculpatory from the point of view of the president. There's no way the president is going to be talking about setting up a corporation and then using cash, unless you're a complete idiot, and the president's not an idiot.
Yeah, no, we have our answer right there. He just accidentally admitted it. I mean, there's no way you would do that unless you're a complete idiot. Check. We already know that. The president's a total complete idiot. Look, even though he's done this before, and that's why I'm telling you, people do not know or understand the depth of how stupid Donald Trump is. He's done these kind of payments before, but every time you come to him, he's like, what financing? All right, let's pay it in a suitcase full of cash. Cohen's like, no, we set up a company, we funnel the money through it so that we at least have the veneer of legality. Right? And he's like, oh, right. Okay, so that's part one. Part two, in breaking down what Giuliani said, is if you can, we just played you the tape, and if you want, you can go back and rewind. And it is, look, in my opinion, it is not perfectly clear. When Giuliani says, he clearly says that we don't pay in cash. Trump says we don't pay in cash. That's not clear at all. No, I listened to it about 10 times, and what I heard is we'll have to pay with cash, right? But if you say Yanni and I say Laurel, I hear you, brother. Okay, so I understand that. And if you might bring your own biases and I might bring my own biases into it, and it is what Trump says is a little muddled. It is not perfectly clear either way. But now let's talk about the context that gives us clues as to what people might have said. Remember, Cohen is the one who recorded it. And while he's recording it, he knows he's recording it. So he's not going to want to admit to illegal things. That's why when Trump says, in my opinion, we'll have to pay in cash, he goes, no, because he knows he's on tape. Trump doesn't know he's on tape. And so Cohen goes, no. Let's set up a company, etc.
That's a great point.
Yes, and nobody talks about that. Now, by the way, the tape is cut. This is not, I don't give a damn about Michael Cohen and I have no interest in protecting him. All I want to do is find out the truth, right? And if you say you don't like Trump, you're goddamn right I don't. So I'm very clear about my perspective. But it might be that Cohen cut the tape not because the rest showed how innocent Donald Trump is. Right now, technically, Cohen hasn't even turned on Donald Trump. I mean, it's obvious he's going to, but he hasn't yet. So it's not like he's even necessarily negotiating with prosecutors yet. He hasn't been charged.
Yeah, look, we don't have any confirmation that he's already working with prosecutors, but we already know that he has turned on Trump. And so Cohen's attorney is making media appearances and saying some pretty damning things about Trump.
Yeah, I hear you on that. But I don't think his main thing in cutting the tape is because it would have shown that Donald Trump is innocent. I'd like you to find that tape, okay? I'd like anybody to find that tape, and it doesn't exist. He might have cut off the tape because then Michael Cohen might have said things that were illegal afterwards. He might have talked with Trump about, okay, look, we can't do it in a suitcase full of cash, you knucklehead, but even if we set it up through these ghost companies, this shady business, and that's why he might have cut the tape because it implicates him as well. But right now, the tape that is presented by Michael Cohen implicates Donald Trump.
So Lanny Davis, who is the attorney for Michael Cohen, did a few media appearances, namely with Cuomo on CNN. And I thought what he had to say about utilizing cash was interesting and also accurate, so take a look.
Richard Nixon couldn't spin the tape that did him in, and there's no way that Mr. Giuliani, who knows from being US attorney, the only people who use cash are drug dealers and mobsters. Cash is not what you do, and it was Michael Cohen who said, no.
So as Cenk had mentioned, yeah, he said no, because he knew he was being recorded, which even I didn't really think about that, you're right.
I see it mentioned almost nowhere else, but it's obvious that he knows he's recorded. Okay, so two things about Lanny Davis. Number one, huge Clinton supporter, so that's why Anna's right. We already know Cohen's flipped on Trump in just the lawyers that he has hired. And here's Lanny Davis, Cohen's attorney, attacking Giuliani, Trump's attorney. So they are obviously fighting, there's no question about that. Number two, Trump, this is based on stories that we have done and we've shared with you guys, whether it was using, undocumented immigrants for his jobs, whether he was using the same attorneys as mobsters and associations with those same mobsters, etc. What appears on its face to be money laundering involving the Russians for decades. I think Donald Trump is a lifelong criminal. So that's why he thinks maybe I should pay it in cash. Yeah. Like no rational human being doing a business deal in today's environment would be like, hey, maybe I should go to the bank and withdraw $150,000 in cash. No one in their right mind does that unless they're doing some sort of criminal activity. But again, you could listen to that tape and think he's saying that, no, we're not gonna do it in cash. But what you cannot conclude is, they didn't buy off Susan McDougal's silence, because they clearly did.
Karen McDougal.
Sorry, Karen McDougal.
There's so many women, though. I mean, it's hard to keep track.
What did I say? Susan?
You said Susan.
That's funny because that's a Whitewater person.
That's hilarious. No, okay. So can we talk a little bit more about the cash versus setting up a corporation thing? Because what I'm curious about is, look, yes, you're right that the mobsters usually use the tactic of using cash to pay people off, but whether he's using cash or setting up this corporation isn't paying off someone in a way or paying a media organization to catch and kill a story. Isn't that some sort of violation of campaign laws, any type of law? I mean, it just seems so shady.
Yeah, so it totally depends. So if you had a relationship and you don't want your wife to find out about it, and you just want to pay the person $150,000 not to talk, my guess is that is not illegal. Okay, if you do it right before an election and you do not reveal who's giving the $150,000, and if it's not Donald Trump, it's worse, okay? Because then that is a in-kind campaign contribution. So then you get into the thicket of, was it Donald Trump who gave the $150,000? Was it technically one of these companies, the shell companies they set up? Was it David Pecker who runs American media and made the deal in the first place? So that's where you might get into some illegalities. So there's the obvious lies, that's just a political issue. And then if it was just a payout, not at all related to campaigns, you might have some legal issues, but not as many. Since it's right in the middle of a campaign, you have a lot more legal issues, and that's what they're gonna have to sort out.
Exactly, so that is an interpretation that I've heard, and I'm always curious to see how conservatives are responding to all this stuff, because you've heard excuse after excuse in terms of what Trump has done, how he's done it. It seems as though he's gotten away with pretty much everything. However, Judge Napolitano has been openly critical of Trump, and he was also asked about the legality of this whole situation involving Karen McDougal. So I want to go to Napolitano's analysis of this. This is video 5, so I'm skipping ahead. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
There doesn't appear to be the indication of any crime, but I think that's the wrong analysis. There is an indication of a fraud, and the significance of that is if the client and the lawyer discuss the commission of a crime or discuss the commission of a fraud, there is no attorney-client privilege in that conversation, meaning the tape can be used by anybody who can get their hands on it for any purposes.
Which would include
Bob
Mueller?
McDougal if she's suing the president, which would include Bob Mueller if he's investigating the president. Now, what's the fraud? The conversation is about paying National Enquirer to pay McDougal $150,000 to buy her story and to lead her to believe that the National Enquirer is going to publish her story. But the real aim here is to bury the story by duping her into selling it to them and then not publishing it. That failure to be truthful to her and the involvement of Donald Trump and Michael Cohen in that decision is the fraud.
You say that's not a criminal fraud.
It's a civil.
That's a civil fraud.
You think the president has something to worry about here?
Yes.
You do?
Yes, I do.
Based on?
If there's no attorney-client privilege, then all his communications about these subject matters with Michael Cohen go right to Bob Mueller and to do with whatever he's going to do with it.
Yeah, so let me fill that out just a little bit more, because those are great points. I keep giving credit to Napolitano on Fox News, but he's earned it. He's being honest. So she could bring a civil suit saying, hey, American media told me they were going to publish the story. On top of that, they said that I was going to get a column and I was going to be on the cover over and over again, and that was part of what they were paying me for. And you can tell if they were honest or not. One, we have the tapes, it's already done, right? We already know that the whole thing was a scheme to cover it up. But number two, they never published any columns. They never put her on the cover. They never did any of the things that they said. So it's an excellent case to bring a civil lawsuit. And in this case, they do civil fraud, which is clear on the tape, no matter what you think he said about cash, in which case all of this is admissible. Now, the thing is, it probably would have gotten in anyway, but Rudy Giuliani and Trump are such morons that they waived their attorney-client privilege on these tapes.
Yes.
And I was thinking, even at this late juncture, I thought, do they know something I don't know? Like, I wonder why they did that. No, the answer is simpler. They're dumb. How do I know that? Because today Giuliani came out and said, we meant attorney-client privilege. Oh, you schmuck. Oh, you're so stupid. Why did you waive it earlier?
Right. You can't walk back, the actions that you've already taken pertaining to attorney-client privilege. But remember, the first sign of ignorance from the Trump camp was when Trump went on Fox and Friends and totally minimized the legal relationship that he had with Michael Cohen. And the hosts on Fox and Friends were like, oh no, like just trying to get him to walk his statements back during that interview because it was gonna hurt him legally moving forward. He didn't walk it back because he didn't know any better.
Yeah, so now today Giuliani talking about like, I don't know why these tapes are even out. I mean, there's attorney-client privilege. Oh, wow, they're so incompetent. By the way, there's things that are out in the open that people are ignoring because, I don't know, it's uncomfortable. They don't want to say things that are obvious. Anyway, all the professional lawyers, almost all the professional lawyers that Donald Trump had have already left the building. That's why he's with clowns like Rudy Giuliani, who are mainly political actors, right? And apparently buffoonish ones. The fact that several of his high profile actual professional attorneys have quit is amazing. If you're defending the president of the United States, that's a career building, career defining case. You don't voluntarily walk out of that unless your hair is on fire and you're like, this guy is both a total moron and totally guilty. I gotta get out of here. Right. So they've all left the building. That leaves Giuliani and him going, I waived the privilege. Oh, I meant privilege, oh no. Okay, total clown show.
So what is the response from Donald Trump? He has decided to attack Michael Cohen on Twitter, so let's read a few of those tweets right now. He said, what kind of lawyer would tape a client? So sad. Is this a first? Never heard of it before. Why was the tape so abruptly terminated? And then in parentheses, cut.
We know what terminated means, you idiot.
Well, I was presumably saying positive things. I hear there are other clients and many reporters that are taped. Can this be so? Too bad. So look, remember, prosecutors raided Cohen's property. They've obtained all of this audio, I believe 12 tapes in total. So whether it's edited or not, we'll find the truth in the end. And so I'm curious to see how this all plays out. But so far, it's not looking good for Trump. I mean, just based on that tweet, you're right. He is just shaking in his boots and doesn't know what to do. I mean, he's not even really responding to the contents of that audio. He's doing character assassination against Michael Cohen.
So let me tell you why he's so scared. In 1 second, I have to note though, before I get to that, one, we've just gotten used to a president who writes tweets saying, so sad, too bad.
You're so right.
Like what?
He's normalized that.
He's normalized being a total child buffoon. Anyway, now, when he said what kind of a lawyer would tape a client, a lot of people have already said this, so I'm not the first to say it, but like the kind of client who doesn't trust, kind of lawyer that doesn't trust their client and knows their client is both a criminal and will turn on him at some point. That's kind of the situation we're in. So finally, why is Trump so panicked? If it's civil fraud and he's probably not gonna get brought up on charges, like I said, there might be some campaign finance violations. No, he's worried about the 11 other tapes. This is the first tape. This is like an appetizer at one of those French restaurants where they bring you like this tiny little appetizer and they're like, enjoy. Okay. No, you're about to get a 7-course meal or apparently a 12-course meal. There's 12 tapes. The others are much worse. We haven't yet hit Brashard. I don't know if she's in the tapes, but that's the former Playboy model who they say Donald Trump didn't sleep with.
Oh, that's when they serve you the bitter greens. I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, apparently I don't know French restaurants well enough, but okay, but I will tell you this. If Brashard is on the tapes, that's the one they say, no, Trump didn't sleep with her. Brody, his finance guy, slept with her. And didn't pay her $150,000 or $130,000, paid her $1.6 million. She happened to get an abortion, but that's not necessarily connected, unless it's in the tapes.
Yeah, look,
Oops. I don't know. We'll see. Or by the way, or 100 other criminal things that Donald Trump has done. So this is the tip of the iceberg. I can't wait for the iceberg.
Well, I want to leave you with this. For people like Cenk who have heard these audio tapes and who have read these stories and are starting to be swayed by this content, Donald Trump has a message for you. He said this, quote, what you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening.
I mean, that is the defining quote of Donald Trump, okay?
But don't believe your lying eyes.
Yeah, I'm glad you reminded me because I actually do. There's one more tape that we got, and it just has a very simple message. On it, it says, America! And I heard Donald Trump was backing into it as he was saying it. America! By the way, if you don't know Jason Spencer, that guy that Sacha Baron Cohen punked, quit today. he resigned. And I heard at his resignation speech, he just had one word. America! Just having fun, folks. Donald, anyway, we'll see.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, what the White House is doing to avoid any transparency of Trump's interactions with foreign leaders.
All right, back on the Young Turks, lots of comments. I'm Lawrence writes in on YouTube Super Chat. It could also be cash, meaning paid off rather than financing it with a loan like Cohen did with Stormy Daniels. Fair point, I wanted to make sure that you guys heard that. Santa Marina writes in, any update on the Android app? Getting tired / scared of sneaking on my boss's iPad, hashtag Team Android. First of all,
You're the bomb.
I mean, risking getting fired to make sure that you could listen to the Young Turks, give her a t-shirt.
Yes, I was gonna
Come
suggest
on.
it.
That's amazing, man. So thank you, Sandra. Of course, shop TYT.com for merchandise, but Sandra, you'll get one for free. Lots of people saying nice things about Anna. I'll read those real quick. Eva P says, Anna's makeup is so beautiful today, much love.
Oh, thank you.
Kellen Whitaker says, Anna looks so great in purple. This is all YouTube Super Chat. I've got a couple tweets coming up for you too. Last one from the Super Chat, Erica DuPont says, my little 8-year-old TYT soldier, Alina, got our first TYT shirt, and she's ecstatic. She can't wait to show everyone and quote, roast Trump. Yeah. She put a pic on Twitter to show her favorite hosts, Cenk, Anna, and JR. Okay, wow. And JR is back, and JR made a great point during the break about Donald Trump's cash. Who asked about paying in cash in any transaction?
Right, like how did that topic even come up?
Right, like even if he said don't pay in cash, why? Do you normally pay in cash?
Yeah.
Right, like, and I was talking to him during the break real quick. I was saying, if I talked to anyone at the Young Turks and somebody said, hey, we got a deal with an advertiser or somebody, and I said, don't pay in cash. You'd be like, what? Why the hell would we pay in cash? Right? So obviously they do shady things all the time over there. And the two comments that are great from Twitter, the 4-got-10 arm writes in, pretty sure the reason Cohen was recording Trump wasn't to have leverage over Trump, but to have a vocal order from Trump telling him to spend the money. Trump has a long history of not paying people back, so Cohen may have been ensuring his payment. Great point.
Oh, that is a great point. Also, I mean, think about it. I mean, different scenarios, obviously, but remember when Comey had all those interactions with Trump and then immediately wrote memos, which he then, leaked. I mean, why did he do that? It was because he knew that there was a possibility that things would blow up and Trump would lie about those interactions.
Yeah.
And I feel like, that could have been a motivating factor for Michael Cohen as well.
Yeah, and you know what? You also get a t-shirt, because that's a good point we hadn't thought of, so bless your heart. Thank you for being part of this show, I love it. So last one, Johnny, I can't read your Twitter handle. You got to change it, okay? Because you're making good points, but I can't read your Twitter handle. Anyway, between the main show, post game, no filter, old school, the breakdown, and Rebel headquarters, I've almost completely stopped watching mainstream media. Being a member is worth every penny. Thank you, TYT, for all the amazing content. Ooh. Thank you, Johnny, and TYT.com/join. Look, you get it's basically a progressive Netflix. You get all the progressive shows you could want, both podcast and video, okay? And now the price is incredibly low. So you go do it right now, and you get to support progressives. Look, if we don't do it, who's going to support a Bernie Sanders style candidate in 2020? Who's going to do it? Who's going to support all those progressive candidates in 2018? Did you see anybody else doing it? Did you see anybody else interviewing all of them, doing all those videos?
Nope.
Okay, TYT.com/join. Okay, Anna, what's next?
All right. The White House is taking more steps in avoiding transparency, especially when it comes to Donald Trump's conversations with foreign leaders. So according to recent reporting, the White House will no longer publish summaries from President Trump's calls with world leaders. And there are readabouts, which are historically, put out by the White House, so reporters can kind of keep an eye on what's going on, what these conversations are really about. Now, the phone conversations rarely contain news, but are the only proof or record of such a call taking place. They are distributed internally and often contain descriptions of what was discussed. So this all started to kind of unravel back in mid-June when the White House was releasing these readouts that really didn't have much detail at all. So the last readout was published by the White House on June 16th and contained a vague 3-sentence summary of Trump's call with the Hungarian prime minister. But now they've decided, we're not gonna do any of these readouts anymore, period. Now this is problematic because oftentimes when there are calls with, let's say, Trump and a world leader, there could be two sides to the story. That was the case when Trump had a call with Justin Trudeau in regard to trade negotiations. Trump's White House made it seem as though they had this great amicable discussion, when in reality, well, I'm inclined to believe Justin Trudeau, but Justin Trudeau claimed that the call was a little more combative. So it's hard to get the US's narrative or perspective on these discussions if the White House is refusing to be transparent about it. There's another component, but Cenk, I want you to jump in.
Yeah, so apparently in that call with Canada, Trump talked about how Canada burned down the White House, which of course they never did. When the White House was burned down, Canada did not even exist.
Where did he get that from?
Because the English came from what is now Canada.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so they controlled it back then. Canada would not exist for another 50 years. And the English came down and burned down the White House. But so what does he know? He doesn't know anything.
Yes.
So he comes and goes, oh, well, you guys burned you're a national security threat. That's why I had to do tariffs. And Trudeau's like, national security threat? So you remember when you burned down the White House? And Trudeau's like, no, I don't remember that because that didn't happen. Anyway, but that goes to the heart of this story, which is he doesn't want you to have the transcript or even summaries, because then it would show that he's lying.
There is absolutely no pushback from Republican lawmakers about this story. None, zero. There's absolutely no Republican pushback about Trump's executive power, how he flexes executive power, how he issues executive orders. I mean, there was so much controversy about Obama using executive actions. They thought that it was just the wrong way to go about things. But Trump has been doing things unilaterally. No pushback from Republicans.
But to be fair, Anna, I'm not sure that the Republicans would have been hypocritical about other things, like Trump's affairs and payoffs to his mistresses. If Obama had had multiple affairs while his wife had just given birth and was paying people off during campaigns, I'm sure the Republicans would have let it slide.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and then of course, the Supreme Court issue where they're trying to rush Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation when they did the exact opposite when it came to Merrick Garland because it was an election year. Anyway, the list goes on and on. But there's another part of this that I really want to discuss because it's just incredible how the White House also tries to alter transcripts and omit certain things that make Donald Trump look bad. So for instance, when Donald Trump had his joint press conference in Helsinki with Vladimir Putin was asked whether or not he wanted Trump to win the election. Here is the video.
Do you want President Trump to win the election, and did you direct any of your officials to help him do that?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Because he talked about bringing the US-Russia relationship back to normal.
So the White House has omitted that, has basically taken out that interaction from the official White House transcripts.
Okay, it goes to the heart of who Donald Trump is, both a liar and stupid. We already saw it, the whole world saw it, we all have it on tape. So he's like, no, I got it. You just, when Putin said he wanted me to win, you just take it out of the transcript.
No, I know. I know that we've all seen it, and maybe I'm wrong, but tell me what you think about this perspective. I don't think it's about convincing Americans about what's really going on today. I think it's about basically taking hold and controlling the narrative for history, like for US history in the future, right?
No.
So if it's not in the official, White House transcripts, did it really happen? Sure, there'll be video of it, but who knows? I just feel like it's an attempt to whitewash everything.
I hear you, Anna, and it's a great point. A lot of people have already called it Orwellian because it is. The government says do not listen to your ears and do not believe your eyes. So bow your head, okay? And it's also the technical definition of politically correct. Both the Soviets and the Nazis would say, yes, that is technically correct, but it is not politically correct. So you should strike that from the record, and they would not allow you to use certain language, etc. So in this case, they go, well, it is obviously factually correct that Putin said that, but it is not politically correct that he said that. So remove it from the transcript. But it's such a ham-handed, is it ham-handed or fisted? Either way, ham-fisted way of doing that, right? Because it's not 1948. It's not it's not the old days where the government just wipes it off and no one knows. Maybe some guy wrote in a newspaper but you could easily deny it. It's the year 2018. We all see it. We all already saw it. So to try to wipe the record clean, you cannot do that in this day and age. But he's too stupid to realize that. All it does is exposes you further. But I have even better news. So he wipes that away because he's obviously guilty and he's trying to cover up his guilt. But the more important part of the story is there is no summary of his one-on-one meeting with Putin. He would not allow it. Oh, the schmuck admitted things when he was with Putin. I don't know how we're gonna find out. I don't know if it's because of the translators. I don't know if Mueller can somehow get his hands on that information. And Trump, he's such an idiot, and so are his lawyers, that maybe they'll bungle it right into the prosecutor's hands as they did with the Michael Cohen tapes. But he must have said things there talking about his collusion. And so you can say, oh no, Cenk, you're doing speculation. All right, believe whatever the hell you want to believe. Here's what we know. Trump's like, no, don't let anybody find out even a summary of what I said to Putin. So he must have said things that were, I mean, if you're a logical person, would show that he's guilty, of course. And he's so stupid, I told you can't cover it up. He'd probably go in there and go, Vlad, what do you need me to do next? Don't worry, it's just me and you in this room.
So there are some updates to this whole story. If you can recall, even though it was a terrible idea, Donald Trump had invited Vladimir Putin to the White House. They were supposed to meet in Washington, D.C. And it has just been reported today that the White House has decided to postpone that meeting until after the midterm elections, likely in 2019. And I think it's because finally someone in his circle convinced him that it is a terrible idea. In the middle of this investigation, after this hellish joint press conference in Helsinki, it's a terrible idea to invite Vladimir Putin to the White House. And look, it's not necessarily a terrible idea to invite Vladimir Putin for a discussion, right? In any other context, I'd be fine with that. In the context of Donald Trump, if you care about him and you don't want him to make more mistakes, you want to dissuade him from inviting Vladimir Putin.
Look, a couple of the guys here, I hadn't thought of it, but Jesus, Edwin, the guys who work on the crew, our director, et cetera, made a great point. If Putin had come into the Oval Office, he would have sat in the president's chair. And they would have taken a picture and they would have put it out. I know it's obvious speculation, we'll probably never find out. But he would have done it because that's who Putin is. And he would have made sure that Reek knew where he stood.
Yeah.
And it would have been devastating to Trump. So this is a rare situation where Trump's advisors have headed off disaster. But disaster is coming either way. Now this, again, I grant you this is speculation, okay? And I'm being clear with you about it. But I know guys like Putin. I certainly don't know Putin himself. But he has that smirk on his face throughout that entire press conference where he's pulling the strings on Trump and getting Trump to say, I don't know why it would have been the Russians, it would probably not. It was our intelligence is stupid and weak, right?
Yep.
Russia is strong, right? So during that press conference, he's got that smirk on his face. And then they ask him the thing that we were just telling you about. Did you want Trump to win? And he's like, of course I did. Now you don't admit that if you're trying to cover things up. My guess is he will milk Trump for everything that he could possibly get out of him, see if he could destroy the NATO alliance, et cetera, et cetera. And then when he's done with Trump, he's gonna release the compromat anyway. Because that's who Putin is. He's a bad guy. And he revels in his power, and he revels in destroying things. And even if you say, hey, Cenk, you're trying to psychoanalyze Putin, okay, fair. But remember that Putin, the other objective he had was chaos in America. And if you want chaos at the end, you'd release the P tape anyway. Okay, so tick, 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 tick.
Listen, I think Ben Mankiewicz is right when he says a picture is not necessarily worth 1,000 words. But with that said, to Cenk's point, take a look at this. I mean, that smirk, you're right. He had that smirk throughout the entire summit.
I love the bowing posture of Trump even more, but the smirk does add a nice little touch to it, like, now what did I tell you, Reek? Yes, sir, America's at fault, not Russia. I'm so sorry for America, sir. Oh my God, that, again, I know we're overanalyzing it. It's just one snapshot in time.
No, let's be clear. The picture means nothing. I just think it's funny and entertaining.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But that, unfortunately, if we are right, is the picture of their relationship.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk economy because there's a lot going on and I can't wait to discuss it. So, Donald Trump's tariffs have been absolutely disastrous for various industries throughout the United States, but particularly for farmers. And so Trump is doing what he typically does. When he's in trouble and when he's getting called out for a failed policy or a bad behavior, he doubles down. And that's exactly what's happening today. In fact, he is responding to Republican lawmakers who have been criticizing him and these tariffs. And of course, he did so in the form of a tweet because that's what Trump typically does. He says, every time I see a weak politician asking to stop trade talks or the use of tariffs to counter unfair tariffs, I wonder, what can they be thinking? Are we just going to continue and let our farmers and country get ripped off? Lost $817 billion on trade last year, no weakness. Now, the farmers themselves are deeply unhappy with what's going on with these tariffs because they are concerned about destroying trade relations and contracts that they took years to establish. They're worried that it's not just the financial downfall that they'll experience this year, but a financial downfall that'll extend for years to come. And so, Trump's response to that was, all right, we're gonna give you some money. But farmers aren't happy about that, and we will get to that later. Now, Donald Trump also claims that negotiations are going really well. Be cool, the end result will be worth it. And he also says they are being vicious, meaning China, in what will be their failed attempt. We were being nice until now. China made $517 billion on us last year. So I want to stop there for a second. First off, I acknowledge that China has made a terrible mistake in allowing the United States to owe its country $1.18 trillion. The US is in debt to China to the tune, again, of $1.18 trillion. Now, I mean, it's just fascinating how Trump's narrative of all of this is very one-sided. The US is being taken advantage of. Well, again, the US owes China a lot of money, right? And so if China wanted to dump US Treasury bonds, it would be disastrous for their own economy, but that would be a nuclear option that would destroy our economy as well.
And we put ourselves in that situation. We didn't have to borrow from China. We chose to borrow from China. China gave it to us, and if you're looking to borrow money and somebody gives it to you, they're not being mean to you, they're being nice to you. But anyway, all this is meaningless. It's all business, right? So, all right, now let me break down two things that are important. First, I actually think the first part of what Trump said in the tweet is not wrong. If you're trying to show a united stance and you have people in your own country not backing you, it does make negotiation harder. So I think he's right about that. Now, I don't think that his stance here is the logical one, and I understand why people are saying that they don't agree with it, but it does make the negotiations more difficult. For example, when, and I always try to look at it, what if the shoe's on the other foot? When Obama was trying to do negotiations with Iran and many other countries, but particularly with Iran, the Republicans here literally sent a letter to the Ayatollah saying Obama doesn't represent us and we're gonna betray him. Okay, which was unbelievable and hurt the negotiations. He wound up pulling it off anyway. But fair is fair. So now again, this is mainly the Republican Party saying it's a terrible idea and undercutting Trump, but they are undercutting him.
They are undercutting him, but I would argue that this is one of the rare instances where Republican lawmakers are doing the right thing. Now, are there instances where trade negotiations make sense, threatening other countries with tariffs make sense? Of course, right? But as I've said a billion times on the show, it's a nuanced issue that you have to be knowledgeable about, and Trump is not knowledgeable about this. He's just slapping on arbitrary tariffs left and right, many of which are impacting our relationship with allies, longstanding allies. And so I feel as though lawmakers don't know what else to do because Trump unilaterally does things that are completely disastrous. His own aides are against this. His own economic advisors, behind the scenes are against this based on the reporting that we've seen. And so, yeah, it's making your job harder for a good reason, because you're not, what is your negotiation? What are you gonna try to do? So far, all we've seen from him is, I don't think this is fair, so I'm gonna slap on some tariffs. And then, of course, the countries that he's done this to will retaliate, and his form of negotiating is, I'm gonna do more tariffs. Yeah. That's not negotiating.
Yeah, so look, I don't agree with his policies, but I'm just pointing out that he is being undercut. Now, his policies are stupid for a number of reasons. One is he never had an end game. He never thinks more than one step ahead. So they're like, hey, Donald Trump, if you do tariffs against China, they will do reciprocal tariffs against you. And the minute they do it, he's like, what? Why did they do the tariffs? Well, they're being so vicious. No, you schmuck. Any country, when there's a tariff against them, does a reciprocal tariff. That's why you don't start those trade wars. And then he says they're being so vicious by targeting the farmers because they know it hurts me. Yeah. What did you think they were gonna do? Be nice to you? You slapped hundreds of billions of dollars of tariffs on them. Of course they were gonna try to hit you where it hurt, not where it doesn't hurt. The fact that he's surprised by that is what's amazing. Like, oh, it turns out they hit the farmers. Of course they were gonna hit the farmers, you idiot, right? And then finally, in terms of why he doesn't understand anything, look at the last part of the tweet. And he says this over and over again. He said, we lost $817 billion on trade last year. I think that he actually believes we just lost the money, that it's gone. No, it's a trade. And yes, so for example, we have a trade surplus with Canada, even though he doesn't realize that. So it's not that we took money from Canada, it's that we sold them more goods than they sold us. But they bought our goods, we bought their goods. We didn't just take their money, and China didn't just take our money.
Exactly.
We didn't lose $817 billion. That's not how trade works. To give you a sense of it, how it works in your life, when you have a trade deficit with your car dealership, let's say you paid $30,000 for your car. They didn't just take $30,000 from you. You gave them $30,000. They gave you a car. That's how it works.
Exactly.
Now, if you were two different countries, you would have a trade deficit to them. But you didn't lose the money, you got a car for it. But he doesn't understand that. I think he literally believes, where did the money go? The $817 billion, it's gone. We lost it, we got to get it back. Oh my God, you're so stupid.
I just feel like, look, if you're concerned about trade deficits, I mean, I guess it's a negotiating tactic to threaten any given country with tariffs, but don't you also have to play, like your economic advisors, for instance, right? The head of the Treasury, I don't know. I mean, shouldn't they work as a salesperson who has communication with these countries and sells US products that we would then export to kind of close that trade deficit? But that's not the way that he wants to handle it. He wants to handle it with this like hardball way of doing things, and it hasn't worked so far. In fact, it's only hurt the economy, it's hurt the farmers, and his response to it has been ridiculous. By the way, this has also hurt the solar power industry here in California when he first imposed these huge tariffs on solar panels coming from China. I mean, no one cared about that. No one made a big deal about that. A bunch of jobs in California were lost as a result of that, but no one cared. And he's just continued that failed policy moving forward. By the way, another thing I always found really fascinating was Trump's rhetoric in response to China, in regard to China, is very different compared to his own personal business with China, even when it comes to his current re-election campaign. So his re-election campaign, of course, is gonna have campaign flags and all sorts of stuff, and it is currently being manufactured in China. And we have some photos to prove it. Okay.
Okay, no, look. This is the guy whose slogan is "Make America Great Again." This is the guy who says, if you don't make products in America, I will punish you, like he said to Harley Davidson, and he said over and over again to different companies, without missing a beat, because he does not care about hypocrisy. He just doesn't care about it. His own campaign slogans for 2020, his banners, are being made in China. In fact, they're now rushing orders to America before the tariffs start.
Yes.
Because then the signs will be more expensive, and they don't want more expensive signs because they like buying from China. How could you not see the massive hypocrisy? If you wear the red hats that say "Make America Great Again" and your whole thing was, I like Trump, he's tough, he's doing the tariffs, that'll show China, well, you got to bring the jobs back home. He's shipping out the banners for his campaign to China. Look, I guess if you think, I don't care, man, I just hate Latinos and Muslims, and mainly black people too. Okay, so I don't care where he makes the things. I don't care about any of his slogans. I don't care about anything attached to reality. As long as he hates the same people I hate, I'm gonna vote for Trump. I go, okay, fair, I get it. Okay, but just admit it.
And finally, Trump is planning on imposing some new tariffs on foreign cars that are being imported to the United States. So 25% tariffs on about 200 billion in foreign-made cars later this year. So the EU Trade Commissioner said that the EU is also readying tariffs on $20 billion of US goods if Trump imposes trade levies on imported cars. So it just keeps devolving and getting worse.
I'm sure that once they do that, Trump will be shocked all over again. Why are the Europeans being so vicious to us? I thought we just get to do it to them. What? I didn't know they get to do it to us. All right, we got to take a break, guys. We got so much more, and I've got the amazing news for you guys. Look, Trump's a ticking time bomb. We've covered some of that right now, but wait till you see the polling and the information on how badly they're losing. The Republican Party, they might be on their deathbed. They don't even know it. We'll talk about that when we come back. Thanks for listening to this podcast. You're only halfway through, so hold, stay right here. Just want to remind you, if you want to get all 5 segments of the Young Turks commercial free, these are just 2 of them. Every day we do it. So go to tytnetwork.com/join and you get the whole 5 segments, 2 hours, ad free. Do it now. All right, back on the Young Turks, a couple of comments from YouTube Super Chat. Sean St. Hart writes in, what kind of an idiot claims to possibly have recordings of the FBI Director Comey taped in the Oval Office? What kind of a person has goons break into his doctor's office to steal files? Oh, right, Trump. I mean, there's so many amazing, preposterous stories that you forget because of the tsunami of idiotic things he does. They broke into his doctor's office to steal the files.
I forgot about that.
To steal his own files. Amazing, amazing. Any one of these stories, if Obama had done it, hearings till the end of his term, nonstop, 100 hearings. Anyway, Kellen Whitaker, Trump looks weak, but remember Trump supporters' ideal social hierarchy, AKA the cucking order. It goes Trump supporters, then brown people, etc. And the bottom positions are far more important than the topmost ones. Great point, Kellen, because they don't care that he just cucked to Putin. They don't care any of that, right? They think, yeah, am I still above brown people? Good, check, mission accomplished, right? So, and the last one is Isabella Roman writes in, Anna, I watched the postgame with you and Brett, and I know it's hard. I drove Phoenix to LA for the Sweet 16 to see you speak. You have no idea how much it means to women like me that you rep us. You give me hope. Thanks.
Thank you.
Although ironically it ends, thanks, dude. But still.
I say dude all the time.
I know. Isabella, that is very nice. We really, really do appreciate it. We have a wonderful post game for you guys today too. I actually want to talk about Anna at Ozzy Fest because we're not going to give any private conversations you had with Senator Gillibrand. I actually want to say something positive about her based on what you told me.
Okay.
That I don't think you've shared yet.
No, I haven't shared it.
Yeah. So. And I also want to ask you some saucy questions too about Ozzy Fest.
Oh, okay.
So all the members get the post game, tyt.com/join, okay? All right, Anna, what's next?
All right. Republicans were planning on running their campaigns based on Donald Trump's tax cuts. Now, Congress successfully gave tax cuts to the wealthy, even though the tax cuts for the wealthy were polling horribly among the American people. Now, it turns out that they're abandoning that platform idea because it is not looking good for them, and they're pivoting to something completely different, whether it's border security or identity politics, anything other than the tax cut. So I have a few examples for you, and I want to start off with Ohio's upcoming special election for its 12th district. So this is a congressional race. You have Republican Tori Balderson versus Democrat Danny O'Connor. And so the first strategy that Balderson's campaign wanted to utilize was tax cuts. And they wanted to feature ads where middle-class Americans were hailing Trump and congressional Republicans for successfully passing these tax cuts. So I'll give you an example of one of their ads. Take a look.
As a mom of 3, I really appreciate the middle-class tax cut. It's saving families like my own over $2,500 a year. I'm voting for Troy Balderson because I trust him to protect the middle-class tax cut. Nancy Pelosi called our tax cut crumbs and promised to raise our taxes. And Danny O'Connor is standing with her.
Now, I don't know if Nancy Pelosi called those tax cuts crumbs, but if she did, she was accurate, because the middle class either saw a tiny increase in their take-home pay or no increase at all. In some cases, especially middle-class earners living in states like California, for instance, or New York, they actually did not get a tax cut at all. They were paying more in taxes. They will pay more in taxes when they file because they cannot deduct their state taxes in their federal taxes. So look, Americans get paid. They see what their paychecks look like. You can't keep lying to them. And so what did Danny O'Connor do? He decided to hit back by highlighting how much Americans actually hate these handouts to the wealthy. Take a look.
Congress, a choice. Troy Balderson supports a corporate tax giveaway that racks up $2 trillion in debt, forcing massive tax hikes on our kids, or deep cuts to Social Security and Medicare. Now Balderson goes further, saying, I have no problems raising the retirement age. The Dispatch endorses Danny O'Connor.
Social Security and Medicare are things that folks earned by doing things the right way. And that's why I will stand against any cuts to Social Security and Medicare. Here, I'm Danny O'Connor, and I approve this message.
Okay, so just keep in mind that in Ohio's 12th district, Trump very comfortably won by 11 points. And this was completely unexpected, but now there is a very tight race. And it's just, I love it. I love all of this. So James.
Yeah. So look, for me, it's totally expected. They're gonna lose that seat, and they're gonna lose dozens upon dozens of seats. They're in a world of hurt. And so let me give you my sense of why. So first of all, and bragging about tax cuts is Republican 101. It's their playbook that they have run for as long as I have been alive. Now, in Conor Lamb's race in Pennsylvania, Trump had won that seat by 20 points. They lost. Now, we go on with our lives as if that's not a harbinger of things to come, but it is. We go on as if these are not big deals when a Democratic socialist won in the middle of Virginia against one of the Republican leaders in the state, in the middle of Virginia, and not Ocasio-Cortez, who ran on, if you ask me, the heart of her campaign was really solidly progressive things like Medicare for all and higher wages. The guy in Virginia, just real Democratic socialist, no joke, okay? And I'm not, look, it's not a thing against Ocasio-Cortez at all. I align with her positions much more. But these are massive swings. They're happening all across the country, and we're pretending like it's not happening. It is, right? So an 11-point lead, gone. But look, they're withdrawing their ads about tax cuts. You know why they do that? Because they have internal polling. And the polling is showing, get those ads off the air.
Yes.
Not only are they not working and it's a waste of money, it's counterproductive. Same thing happened in the Conor Lamb race in Pennsylvania. They ran a whole bunch of ads like tax cuts for the rich, isn't it great? Of course they don't say rich. They say tax cuts for you, isn't it great? And people are like, yeah, I just saw my paycheck. No, not great.
And remember, that tax cut for the wealthy was immediately followed with people like Paul Ryan going in the media and talking about how they needed to cut entitlements. And Americans aren't stupid. They think they are. You know, they say entitlements and they think Americans are idiots. They're just gonna think, oh, these are handouts. We don't like handouts. But no, people know that when you say entitlements, you're talking about Social Security, you're talking about Medicare, and those are popular programs. And they're not buying your complete BS anymore.
They're so out of ideas, guys, that they are now running positive ads. Republicans never run positive ads. You only run positive ads if you're screwed and none of your negative ads are working. I'm keeping it real with you guys. Okay, look, that's politics. I've been covering this for well over 20 years. Republicans never run positive ads, but they have all this money that they raise from corporate interests, and none of their ads are working. So they're like, oh, get the tax ads off the air. It's costing us points. We're going further and further behind. So now in some of the races, they're running positive biographies of their candidates.
Yes.
Like they're a good person. That doesn't get the job done in politics, and it is not what Republicans do ever. That means they're out of any ideas. The only thing they got left is the ads they're running everywhere, and there's two categories. Scary brown people are coming into the country, and we're gonna crush them, and the Democrats would let all the brown people into the country. Yep. Okay, now that will motivate some of your base, and I know why you're running those, but that isn't gonna win you an election, man. You need independent voters. And I've seen the polling. The polling indicates that actually the overwhelming majority of people, including the independents, want a pathway to citizenship. So I know you're trying to scare the crap out of them, but it's a really, really old playbook in that sense. And if that's your only move, you're in a world of trouble because you're not talking about economic issues, which they care about a lot more. And of course, the second thing is Nancy Pelosi is a scary woman. And they think that it's because Americans think she's really too liberal. But look, the other ads they're running, it doesn't have Bernie Sanders in it, okay? It doesn't have all these people who are actually very, very progressive. Now, it does have Elizabeth Warren, but it is curious. Why not Pelosi and Schumer, who are the two leaders? No, the ads generally have Pelosi, and if they have anyone else, it has Elizabeth Warren. Scary women would now be running things.
I didn't think about that.
Why not have Schumer? Schumer is a guy who's considered, liberal, elitist, etc. I don't think he is liberal, but that is the same, that's what the perception is, but they don't have Schumer in the ads.
Look at you uncovering a little bit of that misogyny. I didn't even realize it, yeah.
So they're gonna go to the well on misogyny and fear and hatred, right? But that well already gets them their 28% base, and that base is immovable. But they've lost the independence. They're in for a world of hurt here.
And I also want to provide some evidence for you guys pertaining to wages after the tax cuts, because that was also one of the arguments that Trump and Republicans in Congress would use in order to drum up support for these tax cuts. Oh, these corporations are gonna increase your wages. That did not happen. So let's go to graphic 49. This is a study done by PayScale, and they found that in the first quarter of 2018, wages actually dropped significantly.
No, I need you to study this chart because this is one of the most important charts you'll see, and it is an indication, unfortunately, of both how the corporate Democratic and Republican parties have screwed you. Because that chart does fall precipitously under Donald Trump, but the numbers have been bad throughout. If you notice, the good numbers are at negative 7.5% wage growth.
Exactly.
Negative 7.5, those are the best numbers. Okay, and then it falls into near 9.5, negative 9.5. So what that shows you is how the corporatists in both parties have been screwing you for decade after decade. That's part of why America voted for Trump over Hillary Clinton, because they don't know that chart in particular, but they feel it in their gut. They see their paychecks. They know that they used to make a good living and have some sort of economic dignity, and they don't anymore. And they make a terrible living, and they got to work 2-3 jobs to maintain themselves. It's not a mirage. You were right all along. They are screwing you. You do have negative wage growth when you count inflation into it. Now, it's also true that the Republican Party is worse. And that's why the chart goes down like that. Like it was already terrible under the corporate Democrats, then it got way worse under the corporate Republicans led by Donald Trump. That is the swamp. That's the swamp you hate. That's why you threw a brick through their window and you voted for Trump because you hated the system so much. But it turns out Trump's even worse. Go populist left. Vote for people who actually care about you. And how do you know? How can you tell? Well, do they take corporate money or don't they take corporate money? Now, look, the Democrats have wisened up, and in all their ads, including the one we just showed you, they're attacking corporate tax breaks, corporate giveaways. Why? Because their polling indicates what we have said all along, which is that Americans actually hate big corporations. They get crushed by big corporations, and you can tell them all day long on MSNBC and CNN how wonderful big corporations are. They're not buying it. They work for big corporations, and they've seen their wages get crushed. So now, not that the corporate Democrats are necessarily going to help you in that regard, but at least they're smart enough to go, oh, the polling indicates they hate corporations. This was a terrible corporate tax break, and they shouldn't have given it to corporations, they should have kept it with you. That's a winning political strategy. They're gonna crush the Republicans in this election cycle. Now, it is incumbent upon all of us, yes, to help them do that, because the Republicans are worse. That part is true, you can see it in every number. But it is also incumbent upon us to keep the Democrats honest.
Yes.
Because if they take that corporate PAC money and this was all just a gimmick and they go back to crushing you and lowering your wages, then we haven't made a difference. That's why support Democrats that don't take corporate PAC money. That's when you know they're uncorrupted and are actually on your side and not their side.
Yep, well, one of the Democrats who has been very clear in her disdain for corporate PAC money and has rejected corporate PAC money is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And she had the stunning upset in New York. She beat out an establishment Democrat who was expected to be the next speaker in Congress. Well, here's some great news. Turns out that Republicans, conservatives, they're incredibly afraid of her and they can't stop fear-mongering about her. And recently there was a video that went viral on Facebook featuring a woman named Allie Stuckey, someone who I had debated on HLN about democratic socialism. The video was cut together to make it appear that like Allie Stuckey was interviewing Ocasio-Cortez. It was a doctored video. There was no indication that it was satire when it was initially posted on Facebook. And here is what the video looked like.
Alexandria, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Do you have any experience that qualifies you for this job?
I was growing up during the Clinton era. And then basically when I was in middle school, 9/11 happened.
Do you have any knowledge whatsoever about how our political system works? Yikes. Put socialism into your own words.
Unprecedented concentration of wealth at the very top, tippy top of the 1%.
Wow, I'm kind of surprised to hear you admit that. It sounds like what's going on in socialist Venezuela. What do you think about what's going on in Venezuela?
Just an increasing crisis of humanitarian condition. And to me, it would just be completely unacceptable if that happened on our shores.
Well, couldn't that happen here if we adopted socialism?
It's hard to say what direction that takes. I am not the expert on geopolitics.
Didn't you major in international relations in college?
Middle Eastern politics is not exactly what's at my kitchen table every night.
Venezuela is not in the Middle East.
I may not use the right words.
Well, this has been enlightening. Thank you so much for coming on.
So that video was viewed 1 million times by people on Facebook. And as I mentioned, it previously had no indication that it was satire. And you can tell by the viewers' reactions in the comment sections, a lot of people actually, it's amazing, but genuinely believe that that was a real interview. Later, after receiving backlash, they titled it appropriately and mentioned that it was satire. But the clips of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez were from her interview with PBS's Firing Line. And I just find it interesting because first of all, that wasn't funny. So if it was an attempt to be satirical, you failed miserably. You're not The Daily Show. There isn't anything clever or funny about that video whatsoever. But more importantly, here's what you do when you come across political ideas or a political ideology that you disagree with. You fight ideas with ideas, right? You fight with evidence, with data, statistics, and you make your point. Allie Stuckey is really bad at doing that. And so an easy way of doing this is to just defame someone and try to write them off as an idiot who doesn't know what she's talking about. The only idiot here is the person who's unwilling to have a real debate about what democratic socialism is. So
yeah, so no, there's more idiots. It's their viewers, and I'll tell you why they did it. So they described the video initially as Stuckey grilling Ocasio-Cortez about her, quote, socialist agenda, knowledge of government, or lack thereof. So it was labeled to get you to believe that it was real. And then it had an emoji at the end, if that helps, okay? And so what they were counting on is the people who watch us are not bright, they're conservatives. And so they will get to call it satire, but we know that they won't think it's satire. And when they saw the comment section, they must have known immediately. Hey, I can't believe what a complete moron she is. I can't believe she doesn't know Venezuela's not in the Middle East. Now, if you thought it was satire and they doctored the tape, you would know that she didn't answer Venezuela to the question about the Middle East. Right? But if you read the comment section, no, the conservatives are furious. And they're like, what an idiot, I know it, she doesn't know anything. The irony of that is hilarious because this conservative organization knows our viewers are dumb. They won't be able to figure it out. So we'll deceive them. And then we won't do anything unless we're caught. And if we're caught, after we're caught, we'll say, oh, it was satire. We always meant it for it to be satire. Well, nobody took it as satire. And that's the entirety of the point, which is unfortunately, it is much easier for these conservatives to spread their fake news and get it viewed by a lot of people. Their retraction or their labeling of it afterwards doesn't get anywhere near as many views.
No one's gonna notice that. I mean, the people who have commented and seen that video, they've already seen the video. What makes you think they're gonna go back and read the description again? I mean, it's just not gonna happen. And by the way, if this organization was known for satire, then that's one thing. But they're not known for satire. It is a conservative outlet that does conservative content. And look, I think I was supposed to debate Allie Stuckey again today on HLN. And I don't know, I mean, she dropped out last minute. It could have been for a good reason. I don't know what the reason was. But I did have an interaction with her in regard to democratic socialism. And she takes a page out of the conservative playbook. Just fearmonger about it because we don't like the ideas. So I wanna just show you a small snippet of that interaction. We had talked about it on the show previously, but it gives you a sense of who Allie Stuckey is.
First of all, the Democratic Party has moved much further to the left since 1990. That's not an opinion. You can look at Pew Research on virtually every single issue since 1990. The entirety of the Democratic Party has moved to the left, whereas Republicans have stayed about the same. So it's just not true to say that this is some kind of reform going back to the original purpose of the Democratic Party. The fact of the matter is that they're putting socialist candidates out there, and socialism has not worked. You can tell me democratic socialism is different. It's not true. It's just socialism that you choose. It is not possible to maintain a capitalist society in which the government takes over the means of production. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked in the past. It doesn't work now. There are hundreds of millions of dead and buried people that can attest to the danger of socialism and communism.
You are confusing socialism with something. No, you are confusing democratic socialism with socialism. No one is looking to overthrow a capitalistic system. I believe in capitalism, but what we have right now is crony capitalism. And the American people in general, that includes Republicans, are sick and tired of it. If you look at the approval rating for Donald Trump's massive tax cuts for corporations, even among Republicans, the approval rating has dropped considerably because people have noticed, look, all these tax cuts are only benefiting the top 1%, not the American people. Wages remain stagnant. And by the way, a federal judge that was appointed by Bush just struck down the zero tolerance policy under the Trump administration, indicating that yes, the right wing has moved further to the right. I want to make a quick clarification. So in the very beginning of that, because I was furious, I said you're confusing democratic socialism with socialism. I forgot totalitarian socialism, right? Yeah. So they think of the USSR, they think of what happened in Cuba. Of course, we already have socialist programs here in the United States that actually do really well with voters, Medicare, Social Security. Those are programs that Americans don't want cut. But she just fearmongers about it. I mean, it's incredible.
Well, look, now I'm a little afraid of what's been created here, and I'll tell you why. So was she right about anything? No, everything she said was wrong. You can look at the polling, and it shows the Republican Party has moved massively to the right. I know that I used to be a Republican, and there was such thing as liberal Republicans back in the day. That doesn't exist anymore. On every issue, the Republican Party has moved to the right, and the Democratic Party has moved to the right. The Democrats used to be really liberal. Now they're mainly corporatist. So, and that's a failing that we criticize the Democrats over all the time. And I can go on and on. So what am I afraid of? They're gonna make a star out of her. TV is.
Oh, no, that's gonna happen. That's gonna, I mean, I'm already over that. I'm already over that.
They're like, wait, a young, attractive conservative who gets everything wrong? Welcome to prime time.
Yeah.
So that you might be looking at the next Tommy Lauren there. They're like a person who doesn't know anything, but supports right-wing positions. We need right-wingers. Get her on air, get her on air, get her on air, okay? And so a star is born. Now the person who was actually saying things that were correct, they're like, well, nah, we get called liberal all the time. So we don't want any liberals on air. But if you're a knucklehead conservative, you will get all the press coverage you want. So even though she did fake news here in this, doctored video with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, if I've got media figured out right, and we've seen it 100 times already, this will help her career.
Oh yeah, media star is born.
Yeah,
sure.
Because the reality is the mainstream media doesn't care whether you're telling the truth or you're lying. They're just looking to appease right-wingers. And at the minute they get a right-winger like this, they will give them more airtime than you could possibly imagine. So you'll probably see a lot more of Allie Stuckey because nobody cares if she's telling the truth.
Yeah. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, how Trump is dealing with corporate violations.
Thanks for watching what I hope was a lovely edition of the Young Turks. Now, you know that is 2 of the 5 segments that we do because that's free. We want to have you support independent media and come watch the whole show that we do every day. That's 5 segments overall, no ads at all. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. Come become a member. Thanks for watching either way.